Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Always good to be back.
Today we're diving into Mark Douglas's The Disciplined Trader.
Oh, excellent choice.
We've got his book, obviously, and then a whole stack of your notes and highlights.
Yeah, it's a fascinating book.
So we're going to really unpack his ideas about the psychology of trading.
Definitely.
You know, it's interesting because trading is often presented as like all about the charts and numbers.
Right.
And Douglas argues that the mental game is just as important.
Yeah, maybe even more so.
Yeah.
He really emphasizes that trading is not just about analyzing the market,
Right.
but also understanding and mastering your own mind.
Okay, so let's dive into that.
Let's do it.
One of the first things that jumped out at me was this concept of the illusion of control.
Right.
And Douglas talks about how the market environment is so different from our everyday lives.
Yeah.
It's unstructured with prices, constantly in motion.
Mm.
And there's this potential for unlimited profit or loss. I mean, it can feel like anything is possible.
And that's precisely what creates the illusion.
Right.
In most areas of life, we have a sense of boundaries
Right.
and predictability.
Yeah.
But the market doesn't play by those rules.
Yeah.
It's this vast, complex system
It really is.
that we can never fully control.
Douglas actually shares a pretty harrowing story
Oh, yeah.
about how he fell victim to this illusion early in his career.
Yeah.
He lost everything.
Yeah.
His house, his car.
Yeah.
Because he was so convinced he could predict and manipulate the market.
It's a powerful anecdote
right.
that illustrates the dangers of getting caught up in that feeling of control.
Yeah.
Have you ever experienced something similar?
Yeah.
Maybe not in trading.
Well, yeah, not in trading, but where that sense of, having control
Right.
led you down the wrong path. Oh, absolutely. I think we've all been there at some point. Like, that time I was convinced I could win a claw machine prize.
Uh-huh.
You know,
Oh, yeah?
I must have spent $20 on that thing,
Yeah.
convinced I could somehow outsmart the machine.
It's a very human tendency to try to impose order
Right.
and predictability
Right.
on a world that's often chaotic
Yeah.
and unpredictable.
Yeah.
And the market is a prime example of that.
So if we can't control the market, what can we control?
That's the question.
Because, Douglas talks a lot about the importance of self-discipline
Right.
and self-trust.
He defines self-discipline as the ability to act on your trading plan.
Okay.
Even when your emotions are screaming at you to do otherwise,
Okay.
it's about staying focused on the process.
Right.
Not getting swayed by every little fluctuation in the market.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But it sounds incredibly difficult to actually do,
It is.
especially when you're watching your hard-earned money on the line.
And that's where self-trust comes in.
Okay.
Douglas believes that self-trust stems from consistently following your own trading rules.
Okay, so there's got to be rules.
There's got to be rules.
Yeah, okay.
It's about building a track record of making decisions
Right.
based on logic and analysis,
Right.
not just gut feelings.
So it's about having a plan and sticking to it,
Exactly.
even when it's tempting to deviate.
He uses a great example of a floor trader who couldn't hold on to winning trades
Oh, wow.
despite his knowledge and experience.
Mhm.
He knew what to do,
Right.
but he lacked the self-trust to follow through.
That's interesting because it suggests that self-trust isn't just about experience.
Right.
It's about something deeper,
Right.
a belief in your own ability to make, sound decisions.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that belief is cultivated over time through consistent effort
Right.
and self-reflection.
So it's about developing a system,
Yes.
trusting that system,
Yes.
and then having the discipline to stick with it.
Absolutely.
But what about fear?
Yeah.
I mean, fear is a pretty natural reaction when you're dealing with financial risk.
Absolutely.
Right.
And Douglas talks a lot about how fear, particularly the fear of loss, can paralyze traders.
Right.
He suggests that this fear often stems from associating losses with personal failure, rather than seeing them as just a natural part of the trading process.
Like being afraid to cross the street
Right.
because you got bumped by a car once,
That's a good analogy.
even though it's statistically unlikely to happen again.
Past experiences, especially negative ones, can have a huge impact on our future actions.
Yeah.
They can create these mental barriers that prevent us from taking risks.
Right.
Even calculated ones.
So how do you overcome that fear?
That's the $1 million question. It's about shifting your perspectives.
Yep.
Douglas argues that trying to find reasons for every market move is a futile exercise
Right.
because the market is driven by the collective fear and greed
Right.
of thousands of individual traders.
Yeah.
It's not always rational
Right.
or predictable.
You're saying it's like trying to predict which way a flock of birds will fly.
Exactly.
You might have some general ideas,
Right.
but ultimately it's kind of a mystery.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He also points out that the locals on the floor of the exchanges often have the shortest time frame perspective and are driven by impulsiveness.
Right. They're reacting to every little phase.
Reaction to every little tick in the market,
Yeah.
which can make it even harder to see the bigger picture.
So instead of trying to understand every single move in the market,
Right.
what should traders be focusing on?
Douglas suggests that focusing on understanding market behavior
Okay.
and patterns is far more valuable than chasing after reasons. It's about recognizing that the market is not random,
Right.
but rather a reflection of the collective beliefs and actions of its participants.
So it's almost like learning to read the market.
Right.
Like a skilled computer technician understands the components of a computer.
That's a great way to put it.
You're not trying to understand every line of code,
Right.
but rather the overall architecture and how the different parts interact.
And part of that involves expanding your time frame perspective.
What do you mean by time frame perspective?
So is that like looking at charts over weeks or months
Okay.
instead of just minutes or hours?
Gotcha.
It's about stepping back from the immediacy of the market's movements
Right.
and considering the bigger picture.
Yeah.
What time frame do you typically focus on in your trading?
I tend to get caught up in the short term, I'll admit.
Yeah.
It's easy to get sucked into that vortex of checking prices every few minutes.
That's understandable,
Yep.
but expanding your time frame can help you detach from the emotional roller coaster
Yeah.
of those short-term fluctuations.
Right.
And it allows you to make more objective assessments
Right.
of the market's overall direction.
So it's about developing a more strategic view instead of just reacting
Exactly.
to every little blip on the radar.
And this ties into Douglas's concept of perceiving opportunity.
Okay.
He talks about how our perceptions of the market
Right.
can be influenced by our past experiences,
Right.
our biases,
Yeah.
and even the opinions of others,
Right.
and how that can lead us to miss out
Oh, yeah?
on potentially profitable trades.
He shares a great example of a trader
Oh yeah.
who missed a major opportunity.
Yeah.
Because he let someone else's opinion cloud his judgment.
Yeah, it's a good one.
It really highlights the importance of trusting your own analysis.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's about developing the confidence
Right.
to make your own decisions
Right?
based on your own understanding of the market.
Yeah.
Not just blindly following the crowd.
So it's about developing a sense of autonomy
Yes.
and self-reliance
Yes.
in your trading.
Absolutely.
But how do you build that confidence?
Yeah.
It seems like it would take time and experience.
It does.
Yeah.
And Douglas emphasizes the importance of creating accountability
Okay.
in your trading.
Yeah, okay.
He suggests that this starts with having clearly defined trading rules.
Is that like having a set of written rules that
Yeah.
you stick to no matter what?
Exactly.
Oh.
It's about creating a framework
Okay.
for your decision making.
Right.
So you're not just winging it
Right.
or letting your emotions dictate your trades.
But what if those rules aren't working?
Right.
How do you know, when it's time to adapt or change your approach?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it speaks to the importance of constantly evaluating and refining your trading process. Douglas believes that the market is constantly evolving.
Right.
So your approach should be too.
So it's not just about having rules.
Right.
It's about having a process for adapting those rules as the market changes.
Precisely.
Okay.
He uses the example of the charts kept by sophisticated brokerage firms
Yeah.
to illustrate how predictable patterns can emerge when traders act on their beliefs. By understanding these patterns, you can start to anticipate
Right.
how traders might react in certain situations,
Right.
which gives you an edge in making your own decisions.
So it's about becoming a student of the market, observing how it how it behaves.
Yes.
And learning to anticipate its movements.
Yay.
And that learning process involve tracking your trades, analyzing your results,
Absolutely.
and identifying areas where you can improve.
It's like watching game film.
Yeah.
After a sporting event.
Exactly.
To see what you did well and what you could have done better.
This is a lot to process.
It is. It's a lot.
I mean, we've covered a lot of ground already.
We have. We've made some good progress.
Maybe we should take a break here.
Yeah, let's take a break.
And pick up with the rest of Douglas's insights in part 2 of this deep dive.
Sounds good to me.
Awesome.
Looking forward to it.
We'll be back soon. Don't go anywhere.
See you soon.
Welcome back to the deep dive.
It's great to be back.
We're in the middle of exploring Mark Douglas's The Disciplined Trader.
Right.
And it's already clear that this is more than just a technical trading book.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, it's really about the psychology,
right.
the mental game that really separates the consistent winners from everyone else.
He makes a point that to win in the market,
right,
you first have to understand its nature.
Okay.
And he outlines 5 key characteristics that make the trading environment unique.
Okay, I'm all ears. What makes this world so different?
Well, first, there's the unlimited potential for profit and loss.
Right. Well,
this isn't like a regular job with a set salary.
Right, yeah.
In the market, your gains and losses are theoretically limitless.
Yeah.
It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Exhilarating and terrifying at the same time.
That definitely amps up the stakes.
It does.
No wonder emotions run so high in trading.
Right.
You're not just dealing with numbers on a screen.
Yeah.
You know, it's real money with real consequences.
Exactly. And this ties into the second characteristic, which is perpetual motion.
Okay.
Prices are constantly changing
Right.
with no defined start or finish line.
Yeah.
It's a 247 global game, always in flux.
So even when you're not actively trading, the market's still like churning away in the background.
That's a great way to put it.
It's like a river that never stops flowing.
A great analogy, yeah.
Yeah.
And this constant motion requires a certain mental agility.
Right.
You have to be able to adapt, adjust, and let go of your preconceived notions on the fly.
Yeah, you can't get too attached to any one idea or outcome.
Right.
Because the market has a way of throwing curveballs.
That's right. And this brings us to the third characteristic.
Right.
The market doesn't care about your survival.
Ooh, okay.
It sounds harsh,
Yeah.
but it's the truth.
It's easy to get caught up in the idea that you're battling the market.
Right.
You know, trying to outsmart it. But
Right.
but really it's this impersonal force.
Exactly. The market is simply a reflection of the collective actions of all its participants.
Okay.
It doesn't have an agenda, doesn't care who wins or loses. Understanding this can help you detach from the emotional roller coaster of trading.
So instead of fighting the current,
Right.
it's about learning to ride the waves.
Nicely put.
Yeah.
And this leads us to the fourth characteristic.
Okay.
The market offers unlimited opportunities.
Okay, that's a bit more uplifting.
Right.
After the previous 3, I needed some good news.
There's always another trade.
Yeah.
Another chance to learn and grow as a trader. But
Yeah.
but those opportunities are only available to those who are prepared to seize them.
Meaning you need the right skills,
Yeah.
mindset,
Right.
understanding
Absolutely.
to navigate this complex environment.
Exactly. And this brings us to the fifth and final characteristic.
Okay.
You have to create your own definition of success in the market.
So there's no like universal benchmark,
Right.
no like one size fits all definition of what it means to like win at trading.
It's entirely self-defined.
Yeah.
Your goals, strategies, and measures of progress should be unique to you.
That's both like liberating and daunting.
It is.
You know, it puts the responsibility squarely on your shoulders.
It does. This requires a high degree of self-awareness and honesty.
Right.
You have to be clear about your strengths and weaknesses, your motivations and your fears.
It's about understanding the psychological factors
Right.
that drive your trading decisions.
Exactly.
And learning to manage those factors effectively.
Precisely. And that's where the real work of becoming a disciplined trader begins.
Okay.
It's not just about mastering technical analysis.
Right.
It's about mastering yourself.
So we've got this unique environment with its own set of rules.
Right.
And Douglas argues that to succeed, we need to develop specific mental skills.
We do.
And he starts with self-discipline.
He defines it as the ability to act on your trading plan.
Okay.
Even when emotions urge you to do otherwise. It's about staying focused on your long-term goals.
Right.
Not getting derailed by every market fluctuation.
That sounds like a tall order.
Yeah, it is.
Especially when you're, staring at a losing trade.
Right.
How do you resist that urge to panic and just get out?
Well, it's about remembering that every trade has an element of uncertainty.
Yeah.
And that your trading plan is designed to manage that uncertainty.
Right.
Not to eliminate it completely.
So it's about having a system
Yes.
that you trust.
Yes.
And the discipline to stick with it.
Absolutely.
Even when things get uncomfortable.
Exactly. And that trust comes from consistently following your own rules.
Right.
Seeing positive results over time.
Right.
It builds a track record that reinforces your belief in your own abilities.
Which leads us to the next skill.
Right.
Self-trust.
Self-trust.
It sounds like self-discipline and self-trust are intertwined. Like two sides of the same coin.
You can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
Self-trust is that inner confidence
Right.
that allows you to act decisively, even when you're feeling doubt or fear.
It's that belief in yourself
Yeah.
that says, I've done the work, I've prepared, I have a plan,
Right.
and I'm going to stick to it.
Exactly. And that's what separates successful traders from those who are constantly second-guessing themselves.
Right. Chasing every trade.
Chasing every trade.
Jumping in and out.
Yeah.
Based on emotion.
Based on emotion, exactly.
We've got self-discipline,
Yes.
self-trust.
Yes.
What's the next piece of this mental puzzle?
Objectivity.
Okay.
It's the ability to see the market for what it is,
Right.
not what you want it to be.
Right.
To detach from your emotional attachments to trades,
Right.
and make decisions based on logic and analysis.
That sounds like a constant battle.
It is.
Especially when money is on the line.
It is. It's easy to let your hopes and fears cloud your judgment, but developing objectivity is essential.
Yeah.
For long-term success.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that the market doesn't care
Right.
about your opinions or desires.
Right.
It simply reflects the collective forces of supply and demand.
So you're saying it's about accepting
Yes.
the reality of the market,
Yes.
even when it doesn't align with your hopes or expectations.
Precisely. And this acceptance leads to more rational decision making.
Right.
Which in turn leads to more consistent results.
Objectivity. Got it.
Okay.
What's next on Douglas's list of essential mental skills?
Patience.
Okay.
This one is often overlooked.
Yeah.
But it's crucial.
Yeah.
It's the willingness to wait for the right opportunities to present themselves.
Yeah.
Rather than chasing after every trade or forcing entries when the conditions aren't favorable.
So it's about being selective.
Yes.
With your trades.
Yes.
Only entering the market when the odds are in your favor.
Exactly. It's about understanding that trading is a marathon,
Right.
not a sprint.
Yeah.
And that sometimes the best trades
Yeah.
are the ones you don't take.
That's a tough one to swallow.
It is.
Especially when you're feeling that, FOMO,
Right.
the fear of missing out.
It is, but developing patience is essential for preserving your capital
Right.
and avoiding costly mistakes.
Thank you.
It's about recognizing that not every opportunity is worth pursuing,
Right.
and that waiting for the right setups can lead to more consistent profitability.
So we've covered self-discipline,
Yes.
self-trust,
Yes.
objectivity, patience.
Yes.
Is there anything else on Douglas's list?
Yes. The final skill he emphasizes is courage. Courage.
That sounds a bit dramatic.
It does.
For trading, isn't
Yeah.
it? Isn't it just about, analyzing charts and placing orders?
It's more than that.
Okay.
Courage is the willingness to act
Okay.
on your trading signals,
Wow.
even when you feel fear or doubt.
So it's about pushing through those moments of hesitation.
Yes.
When you're questioning your analysis or
Right.
or second guessing your decisions.
Exactly. Fear is a natural part of trading.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to control you.
Right.
Courage is about acknowledging that fear
Okay.
and acting anyway
Yeah.
because you trust your system and believe in your ability to manage risk.
It's about having the conviction to pull the trigger,
Yeah.
even even when it feels uncomfortable.
Precisely. And that conviction comes from a combination of all the other skills we've discussed.
Right.
Self-discipline, self-trust, objectivity, and patience.
They all work together.
They all work together to create a foundation of courage that allows you to trade with confidence.
Wow. This is quite a framework.
It is.
Douglas is basically saying that trading success is as much about inner work as it is about, external analysis.
He's arguing that mastering your mind
Right.
is just as important as mastering the markets, and that developing these mental skills is an ongoing process.
It's about constantly refining your approach.
Yes.
Challenging, your limiting beliefs.
Absolutely.
And building a mindset
Right.
that supports your trading goals.
Exactly. And that journey of self-discovery is what makes trading such a challenging and rewarding endeavor.
This is a lot to unpack.
It is.
But it's incredibly insightful.
It is.
Maybe we should take another pause here.
Yeah, let's take another break.
And pick up with Douglas's practical advice for developing these mental skills in part 3 of this deep dive.
That's a great idea. We'll delve into his 5-step process for creating a winning trading attitude next time.
Sounds good. We'll be right back after a quick break. Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Glad to be here.
We're wrapping up our deep dive into Mark Douglas's The Disciplined Trader.
It's a great book.
We've talked about the unique challenges of the market,
right,
and the mental skills you need to thrive in this environment.
Right.
Now let's get into the practical stuff.
Okay.
Douglas offers this 5-step process for building a winning trading attitude.
It's a good one.
And it's a roadmap for going from understanding these concepts to actually applying them in your trading.
It's a good framework.
Okay, so lay it on me. What's step 1?
Step 1 is understanding the nature of mental conditioning.
Okay.
And it's about recognizing how our beliefs and attitudes,
right,
even the subconscious ones, are shaped by our experiences.
So it's acknowledging that we all come to trading with pre-existing baggage.
Absolutely.
Past wins and losses.
Right.
Things we've heard.
Right.
Even our general outlook on life.
Exactly. And this baggage can create mental biases,
right,
that affect our trading decisions.
Yeah.
We might be drawn to certain strategies,
right,
or afraid of taking risks based on past experiences.
Yeah.
Even if those experiences aren't relevant to the current market conditions.
It's like that saying, we judge ourselves by our intentions, but others by their actions.
Right.
Except in trading, we sometimes judge the market by our past experiences.
Right.
Instead of its current behavior.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
So step 1 is about becoming aware of these mental biases.
Okay.
Starting to question the stories we tell ourselves about trading.
So how do we do that?
Yeah.
How do we excavate those hidden beliefs?
Right.
That might be driving our decisions without us even knowing it.
Well, step 2 is identifying your beliefs and attitudes about trading.
Okay.
And this involves some serious self-reflection.
So you mean like journaling or meditating on my trading history?
Those can be helpful tools.
Okay.
Douglas recommends revisiting your past trading experiences.
Okay.
Pay attention to the thoughts and emotions that came up during those trades.
Right.
What were you telling yourself when you won? What about when you lost?
I can see how that would be revealing.
Yeah.
I know I tend to get overconfident.
Yeah.
After a few wins in a row.
Sure.
And then I start taking unnecessary risks.
That's a common pattern.
Yeah.
By identifying those patterns, you can start to understand
right,
the beliefs that are driving them.
Right.
Maybe you have a subconscious belief.
Right.
That you need to make up for past losses.
Right. Or that you're due for a win after a losing streak.
So step 2 is about shining a light on those subconscious beliefs.
Absolutely.
Bringing them into our conscious awareness.
Right.
So we can start to deal with them.
Exactly. Once you've identified those beliefs,
right,
the next step is to challenge them.
Okay. That sounds a bit scary.
Yeah, I know.
How do you challenge a belief that's been ingrained in you for years?
Right.
Maybe even decades.
Well, step 3 is challenging your limiting beliefs.
Okay.
It's about questioning the validity of those beliefs.
Right.
Asking yourself, is this belief actually true? Is it serving me?
Right.
Or is it holding me back?
So it's about putting those beliefs on trial.
Exactly.
Examining the evidence for and against them.
Douglas offers several techniques for doing this.
Okay.
One is cognitive reframing.
Okay. And it's about looking at a belief from a different perspective.
Right.
Trying to find a more positive and empowering interpretation.
Okay, can you give me an example?
Sure.
How would you reframe the belief that, I'm not good at trading?
Okay, well, instead of focusing on past losses,
Right.
you might reframe it as I'm still learning and developing my skills.
Right.
Or I'm committed to improving my trading process.
Right.
It's about shifting your focus from your perceived limitations to your potential for growth.
So it's about changing the narrative.
Okay.
Instead of telling yourself a story of, failure,
Right.
You're telling yourself a story of learning and progress.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another technique is affirmations,
Yeah.
and this involves repeating positive statements to yourself.
Okay.
To reinforce new beliefs and attitudes.
So instead of saying, I'm bad at trading,
Right.
I might say, I'm a capable and confident trader.
Exactly.
Okay.
The more you repeat those affirmations,
Right.
the more you start to believe them,
Right.
and the more those new beliefs start to shape your actions and your results.
It's like rewiring your brain for success,
Yes.
reprogramming those old limiting beliefs
Right.
with new empowering ones.
Exactly. And once you've started to challenge and reframe those old beliefs, the next step is to develop new ones.
Okay, so we're building a new mental framework for trading.
Right.
One that's based on confidence and clarity and a deep understanding of our strengths and weaknesses.
Step 4 is developing new empowering beliefs.
Okay.
It's about creating a mental environment that supports your trading goals.
So it's not just about tearing down the old. It's about building something new and better in its place.
Exactly. Douglas suggests several ways to develop these new beliefs.
Okay.
One is modeling successful traders.
Okay.
And this involves studying the habits,
Okay.
mindsets, and strategies of traders who are consistently profitable.
So it's like finding a mentor.
Right.
Or a role model.
Yes.
Someone who embodies the qualities you want to cultivate in yourself.
Exactly.
Okay.
You can read books.
Right.
Watch interviews.
Yep.
Attend seminars.
Right.
The key is to immerse yourself in the world of successful trading.
Right.
And start to adopt their mindset.
Yeah.
And their approach.
It's like surrounding yourself with people who are speaking the language of success.
Right.
So you start to internalize that language.
Right.
And make it your own.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another way to develop new beliefs is to immerse yourself in positive trading environments.
Okay.
This could be joining a trading community,
Right.
Attending workshops,
Yeah.
or simply surrounding yourself with people who are supportive,
Right.
and encouraging of your trading journey.
It's about creating a positive feedback loop.
Exactly.
Where your environment reinforces your new beliefs.
Right.
And helps you stay motivated.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Because our environment has a huge impact on our thoughts and behaviors.
Yeah.
If you're constantly surrounded by negativity and doubt, it's going to be much harder to develop a winning mindset.
So step 4 is about creating a supportive ecosystem for your trading journey.
Absolutely.
One that nurtures your growth.
Right.
And helps you reach your full potential.
Exactly. And once you've laid that foundation,
Right.
the final step is to take consistent action.
All right. This is where the rubber meets the road.
Now we're talking.
It's about putting all this mental work into practice.
Right.
Actually executing trades based on your new beliefs and your refined trading plan.
Step 5 is taking consistent action.
Okay.
It's about showing up every day,
Right.
and doing the work, even when you don't feel like it,
Right.
even when you're afraid or doubtful.
It's about trusting the process you've built
Yes.
and believing in your ability to succeed.
Exactly,
Yeah.
because knowledge without action is useless in trading, just
Yeah.
like it is in any other area of life.
Right.
You know, you can read all the books, attend all the seminars,
Right.
but if you don't actually put that knowledge into practice,
Yeah.
it's not going to make any difference.
So step 5 is about developing the discipline
Yes.
and the courage to execute your trading plan
Right.
consistently and confidently,
Right.
even when the market throws you curveballs.
Precisely. It's about trusting in your system, believing in yourself, and never giving up on your goals.
This 5-step process is like a roadmap for anyone who's serious about mastering the mental game of trading.
Absolutely.
You know, it's about building a foundation of self-awareness and discipline and courage that will support you on your journey to success.
It's a great process.
It's a reminder that trading is not just about, technical analysis
Right.
or predicting the market.
Right.
It's also about understanding yourself
Right.
and your relationship to the market.
That's a key part.
Yeah.
It's about developing the mental skills and attitudes
Right.
that will allow you to achieve your full potential as a trader. Right.
Both financially and personally.
Absolutely.
And remember, the journey to becoming a disciplined trader is a lifelong pursuit.
Yeah.
It's a process of continuous growth and learning and self-discovery.
This has been an incredible deep dive into Mark Douglas's work.
Oh, it has been.
I feel like I've gained a whole new understanding of the psychological aspects of trading
Me too.
and some practical tools for applying those insights to my own trading.
It's been a pleasure exploring these concepts with you.
Absolutely.
And remember, the market is a reflection of our collective beliefs and actions.
Mm-hmm.
So the key to success lies in mastering our own minds.
Well said.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
We'll see you then.